大家好，嫦娥的故事不但能讲清过中秋的原因，而且还能帮西方人清楚地了解月亮在中国代表着什么。每年中国人欣赏美丽的月亮，西方人就很好奇，月亮有什么好看呢？因为中国人通过月亮寄托自己对故乡和家人的思念。不过，光看月亮就能让人重逢吗？不难看出来，月亮不仅仅是一个普通星球，更是一个情感寄托，让每一个人都能联想到嫦娥的传说。就像后羿看到月亮的时候，他都会想到他自己的妻子。跟春节一样，中秋是一个历史很悠久的一个节日，没人能说得很清楚它们的起源。同样，嫦娥的故事也是后人为中秋创造的传说，强烈的思乡情感，还有跟亲人别离的难过，都是跟中秋有关系的。中秋节所代表的也正是我们要通过这个故事给外国朋友传递清楚的。Okay, let's read the whole text in English. Chang'e flies to the moon. In the poem Prelude to Water Melody by Su She, there are the lines, Men have their sorrows and joys, their partings and meetings. The moon has its darkness and light, its waxings and wanings. Has this not been always so? But men wish for long lives. They wish to be with the moon goddess so far away. These lines have long been familiar to our ears, as they contain a description of one of our country's important festivals, the Mid-Autumn Festival. Mention of the Mid-Autumn Festival makes us think immediately of the moon. This is not only because of the delicious flavour of mooncakes, a traditional festival food, it is also because of the many legends connected with the moon passed down among the people. Among the most famous of these must be counted the one about Chang'e, who flew to the moon. Now, before we talk about Chang'e's flight to the moon, we must first recount the well-known story titled Hou Yi Shoots Down the Suns. According to legend, in ancient times there were 10 suns in the sky at the same time. The intense heat from these suns made the crops shrivel and die, so the farming people had no food to sustain life. At this time there appeared a hero called Hou Yi. He was immensely strong and a skilled archer. To save the people from hardship, he drew his magic bow and shot down 9 of the suns. The life of the people then returned to normal. After this, the fame of Hou Yi spread far and wide. Many ambitious men admired Hou Yi and went to him to learn his skill. Chang'e was Hou Yi's wife. One day, Hou Yi went to the Kunlun mountains to visit a friend and seek the Tao. He obtained from the Queen Mother of the West a bag containing a herb of immortality. It was said that after taking one of these herbs, a person would immediately fly up to heaven and become an immortal. Hou Yi gave the herb of immortality to his wife for temporary safekeeping. She put it in her dressing table. Now, one of Hou Yi's students called Pang Mang was possessed by the desire for immortality. One day, Pang Mang took advantage of Hou Yi's absence on a hunting trip with his other students to burst into his master's quarters, sword in hand. He forced Chang'e to hand over to him the herb of immortality. Knowing that she was no match for Pang Mang, Chang'e, in this desperate situation, took out the herb and swallowed it herself. Immediately, her body became light and she flew up to heaven. Because she was worried about her husband, Chang'e landed on the moon, which was the nearest place to the mortal world. She then became an immortal on the moon. The same evening, Hou Yi returned home and heard what had happened during the day. Heartbroken, Hou Yi sent his companions into the flower garden which Chang'e had loved, and there they set up an incense table upon which they placed cakes of the sort which Chang'e had liked to eat. Then they began to worship Chang'e far away in the Moon Palace. When people heard about this, they all scrambled to set up incense tables under the moon and prayed to her for good fortune and tranquility. Since that time, the Chinese people have had the custom of paying their respects to the moon at the Mid-Autumn Festival. For us, the Mid-Autumn Festival is also an occasion for reunions. The whole family sits together eating fragrant, sweet mooncakes, chatting and enjoying the bright and clear moonlight. What a fine evening. And as for relatives who are located too far away to join us, we send our thoughts to them via the moon. Although we have drifted far apart, if we can all enjoy the moon on this one occasion, we can trust that each of us feels the affection of these thoughts. The moral of this story. The Mid-Autumn Festival is a traditional festival of the Chinese people. At the Mid-Autumn Festival, people enjoy and pay their respects to the bright full moon. Their thoughts go back to their hometowns and are full of affection for their kinsfolk. The Mid-Autumn Festival has a continuous history of 1,000 years. It is a custom with rich and varied contents and a part of the precious cultural legacy of the Chinese people. Okay, so you've all now heard me reading the whole passage from beginning to end. Now, in this part of the class, what we're going to be doing is practicing some specific recitation skills and recitation techniques. And the specific skill I want to practice in this part of the class is how to use our voice to create two different kinds of moods. In any story, you're not going to have the same mood continuously. Sometimes the story is going to be happy, sometimes it's going to be full of suspense, sometimes it's going to be exciting, sometimes it's going to be sad, sometimes it's going to be peaceful, sometimes it's going to be full of energy. And at these different moments, these different moods in the story, you have to use your voice to reflect those different moods, those different emotions. But we also need to use our voice very clearly to show when one mood is replaced by another mood. 所以我们今天主要要练习的一个技巧是如何用我们的声音来展示一个故事当中的一个气氛或者一个氛围。任何故事不可能从头到底都是同样一个气氛或者同样一个氛围。有时候一个故事会更兴奋一些，有时候会安静一些，有时候会悲伤，有时候会快乐等等。那么如果一个故事从一种气氛或者一种感觉转移到另外一种氛围或者感觉，我们要用我们的声音去反映这个转移。所以我今天选择了一个节选，是有明显的显示两种气氛、两种感觉。然后我等一会儿诵读这个节选，就是从我们的文本当中的其中一个节选。我诵读这个节选的时候，希望大家可以注意听这个节选有哪两种气氛，而且我是如何用我的声音去反映两种气氛。好，大家来听一听。One day, Pang Mang took advantage of Hou Yi's absence on a hunting trip with his other students to burst into his master's quarters, sword in hand. He forced Chang'e to hand over to him the herb of immortality. Knowing that she was no match for Pang Mang, Chang'e, in this desperate situation, took out the herb and swallowed it herself. Immediately, her body became light, and she flew up to heaven. Because she was worried about her husband, Chang'e landed on the moon, which was the nearest place to the mortal world. She then became an immortal on the moon. So, did you hear the two types of mood that were created in this passage? One was the violent mood of Pang Mang as he burst in to Chang'e's house and demanded that she hand over to him the herb of immortality. And the second mood was in the second part of the passage, where she has taken the herb of immortality, and then she suddenly becomes light and flows up to heaven. So the second mood is a kind of peaceful, ethereal mood, whereas the first mood is a violent, aggressive type of mood. 就是说，这个节选有2种主要气氛。第一个是，庞芒，闯进嫦娥的房子的时候，在这个时候，我们要用我们的声音去展示他的那种粗暴的行为。那么，在第二部分，就是嫦娥喝了这个药之后，她开始奔月，然后奔月这一块，就整个气氛就变得很安静。然后在这个时候，我们要用我们的声音去展示她的那种险气。所以一个是一个粗暴的一个气氛，然后后面是一个有带着险气的那种气氛。Okay, so how do we use our voice to reflect these two different moods? Well, obviously, in the first part, we're going to make our voice quicker, louder, but we're also going to carry a kind of agitated emotion in our voice. Whereas in the second part, we need to slow down our voice. We need to lower our voice somewhat. And we also need to make sure that our whole voice has a calmer, more soothing effect on the audience. 所以主要的区别是在于语速，还有这个我们声音的那个高和低度。首先我们说一下语速。一开始我们要反映那个庞芒的那种粗暴的那种行为，我们要有一个比较快的一个语速。但是后来我们描述嫦娥奔月的时候，我们要让我们的语速慢下来。另外一个是我们的声音的一个高度，在第一部分我们的声音的高度会高一点，在第二部分我们的声音会变得低一点。另外一个当然是我们的音量，在第一部分我们的音量会大一些，然后在第二部分我们的音量就是我们的 volume 会小一些。当然另外一个区别是我们带着的一种情绪，在第一个情绪我们要有一种心急的感觉，但是在第二部分我们的情绪是一种安逸的那种情绪，很安静的那种情绪。好， In a moment we're going to listen to the whole passage again, and as I read this whole passage again, I want you to pay attention to the speed of my voice. Watch how the speed of my voice changes. Watch how the pitch of my voice changes. Watch how the pace of my voice changes. And watch how my emotions change. 所以我们现在要再听一下这个节选，然后我讲的时候，你注意到我语速的改变，我声音的高和低的一个高音和低音的一个转变，另外我声音的音量的大小的一些改变，另外我整个声音的一个情绪是如何改变，从一个心急的情绪到一个安逸一点的情绪。好，我们再来听一听。One day, Pang Mang took advantage of Hou-yi's absence on a hunting trip with his other students to burst into his master's quarters, sword in hand. He forced Chang'e to hand over to him the herb of immortality. Knowing that she was no match for Pang Mang, Chang'e, in this desperate situation, took out the herb and swallowed it herself. Immediately, her body became light, and she flew up to heaven. Because she was worried about her husband, Chang'e landed on the moon, which was the nearest place to the mortal world. She then became an immortal on the moon. 好的，我觉得这个节选是特别值得大家在家里练一练。可能大家每一次听到我朗诵这些节选，可能会觉得我声音有一点夸张，这是故意的。我们练习诵读的时候，一定要首先夸张一点，让你的声音，让你的英文的声音有一种突破。你要突破你自己 说的大一些，说的清楚一些，说的更带着一种情绪感。这个对你未来的诵读的能力也好，英语口语的能力也好，英语表现力的能力也好，都会有好处。好，今天的课就到这里了。Okay, today's class finishes here. See you next time. Bye for now.